This is KCBX Central Coast Public Radio. You're listening to Issues and Ideas, the show where local voices tell the stories that keep the Central Coast connected. I'm David Maccabee. This week on Issues and Ideas, we celebrate 50 years of KCBX. That's half a century of stories, voices, and community. We'll start at the beginning as Piper Fedro sits down with our program director, Marisa Waddell, and her parents, Jay and Yolanda, who were there in the early days of the station. Then Marisa sits down with Ailsa Chang, one of the hosts of All Things Considered, to chat about the power of NPR and its programming. Then we'll pass the mic to some of you, the listeners, volunteers, and friends who've been a part of the KCBX family since the very beginning. Finally, Marisa is back with President and General Manager Frank Lanzone and Assistant General Manager Chris McBride to look ahead at what the next 50 years may bring. So turn it up, lean in, and join us as we celebrate the Golden Jubilee of KCBX.
All right, well, I'm Piper Fedro, and I am here interviewing Yolanda and Jay Waddell and their daughter, Marisa Waddell. I'm so excited to be speaking to you all today as we are looking ahead to KCBX's 50th anniversary. We are working on an impact report, and one of those sections is going to focus on a legacy listener family, and you all fit the bill. We're going to start with just some really quick biographical details. So if I can just get your name, age, if you're willing, and how many years you've been on the Central Coast. Let's start with you, Jay.
So I am Jay Waddell, and my age is somewhere in the vicinity of 80 months, maybe 1 year.
80 minus 1 year?
No, 90 minus 1 year. There you go. All right. Learn to count, of course.
Sure.
And also, we came to the Central Coast in 1976, and Marisa was a youth, and her older brother was also quite young, entering 7th grade, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
Yolanda, if I can also just get a little bit of, what brought you to the Central Coast, and if you want to share, we know your name, but if you want to share your age, if you're comfortable.
I am 92, going on 93, and Jay's job at Cal Poly brought us to the Central Coast.
So, Marisa, I hear you were a youngin' when you moved here. What grade were you going to?
I was going into the 6th grade. And I remember when Dad gathered the family together. He had received his degree in library science from UCLA and had been looking for jobs. And he one day brought us all together as a family and said, "Kids, we're moving to paradise."
My fondest memories were when Marisa joined the on-air hosts. And the best memory was when she worked hard to persuade
Matt Elmore?
Was it Matt Elmore?
The program director at the time.
Program director, that on Friday afternoons, Baroque music would be good. And he finally said, "Okay, let's try it." And it became an immediate hit. So that program continued way beyond when Marisa left for college. That's my fondest memory.
She had that musical sensibility and radio sensibility, right? You just knew what the listeners needed.
Yeah, I mean, and it actually became the most popular of our classical programs, and it's just because nobody can resist Baroque music. I don't know, maybe some people can resist it, but it's really an appealing era of classical music.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Jay? What's a fond memory?
Well, I do remember playing classical music on, I think it was Tuesday and Thursday mornings at the studio on Charo Avenue. And we had to be very careful not to bump the needle, which did occur on one occasion, and that brought both Steve Urbani and Steve Burrell's faces to the studio window in a big hurry when it went ripping across that 33 RPM record.
I remember being in the 6th grade and going with Mom and Dad to the studio above Bull's Tavern and just being in wonder at this place. It was very small, but it was kind of magical because here was this place that was full of music, so many LPs and equipment and people who were interesting, and it just was fascinating to me to explore around in there as a kid. And that was, seeping into my growth and development, I'm sure. And the people, I mean, so many interesting people involved with KCBX. And they would have picnics where we'd get together and meet each other because we were, kind of ships passing in the night, or they were at the time. Later, it was me, ships passing in the night with the other DJs and hosts of the talk shows. But then we would get together and have picnics and play softball and have a potluck and talk to each other or do a Christmas parade float, those kinds of things. It was just really a pleasure getting to know the people who cared so much about the community and each other.
Yeah, and talking about community, it's a community in and of itself, right? With all of the hosts and DJs and staff and supporters throughout the years, and then really it's helping to share information with the wider community here in SLO County and beyond. So with that, how do you feel KCBX has impacted the Central Coast community over the last, 50 years?
Well, I think of the local musicians who had opportunities here. That helped a lot of careers move ahead. I thought that was a very significant contribution.
Looking back at the ways KCBX has touched life on the Central Coast, Yolanda remembers the big floods that hit in January of 2017.
The rain was coming down and roads were being flooded and the electricity was going off everywhere. And KCBX was one of the last, probably the very last station that was able to stay on the air because of the 2 new generators they had. So Frank was here and Marisa was here. Do you remember who else?
We had a young weekend announcer at the time named Christopher Shelby. Frank stayed and Chris stayed, and they just kept things going.
Yes, Frank said he was answering the phone, and Chris Shelby was making announcements about where the road closures were. So Frank said finally he sent Chris home and signed off. But KCBX was kind of a godsend to a number of people, I'm sure.
Yeah, truly like a lifeline, right?
Lifeline.
Yeah.
And for that matter, it still is. People can count on balanced news reporting. They can count on music to relax them. And they can count on information of so many kinds. So for those who have discovered, some people don't listen to radio, but those who do and find KCBX, they just love it.
I almost feel like we should just wrap it right there because that was like the perfect bow. But I do have one more question, and it kind of expands on what you were just sharing with us, Yolanda, which you kind of talked about, right, how KCBX has become this lifeline for the community. But what's your hope for KCBX's future? What do you see in the next 50 years for KCBX?
Growth, yeah. I can't imagine KCBX faltering at all. It's got so much to offer, and I want to see it become more popular and more recognized in the community.
Assuming public media survives, I think it will come out stronger because people will know that they must just press on regardless and continue to do the programming it does. And the news department will grow and grow. Oh, and I'm so proud of Marisa for developing the news department. She's worked really hard, and I think it's due to her that we have our little KCBX news department.
Well, it was definitely a group effort, but that was certainly the first thing that I wanted to do when I came on as program director was to start a news department. And with Frank's support, Frank gave a lot of support to that idea, and he wanted it too, and hired a consultant to help us develop a plan.
Yeah.
And then our first news director, Randall White, built it from the ground up. So it's been a thrill to see it get off the ground and keep growing.
And so, Marisa, for you, being, still so actively involved, what's your hope for the future for KCBX?
Well, I hope that even if we do lose federal funding, that the community will rally around KCBX and support us financially so we can continue to serve the community. Because that's my idea about what we should be doing every single day is serving the community. I'm sure that was Steve Urbani and Steve Burrell's idea too. They wanted something to bring the community together and serve it. And that's why they wanted the community involved in creating it as well. And it's been like that ever since. So that's my hope, is that the community supports it financially and also continues to be involved in the creation of the programming here and in influencing it by telling us what they want to hear. We have such a vibrant music community on the Central Coast, and I really truly believe that in large part that's because of how KCBX supports and fosters a vibrant music community. And then, of course, the information that we broadcast, so much of it is about what's happening and who's doing what in our own Central Coast community. And so that's what I hope we can keep doing, regardless of federal funding.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. Well, that concludes our interview. So I want to thank you both, Jay and Yolanda, for coming out here to the studio and being so patient as we kind of talk through everything KCBX and your memories here. And we hope that we can, you continue to discover new music and stay informed. And just thank you so much for your support.
You're very welcome.
We've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sure Jay has. Just bringing back those memories. Thank you, Piper, for asking those questions.
Yeah, this was fun.
Thank you. It was fun.
The Waddell family reminds us that it's always been about the people. From the folks behind the mic to the ones tuning in, this community has kept the station going and will carry it forward for generations to come.
My name is Bill Bartlett, and I'm a proud supporter of KCBX.
My name is Bob Clark. KCBX has programming for every part of your brain. The intellectual part, the emotional part, and the moving and grooving part. I really love donating to KCBX. I think my money goes far.
I'm Kate Burridge, and I just love it all.
Hi, I'm Michael Rosen from Atascadero. Thank you, KCBX. Keep up the good work.
You're listening to KCBX Public Radio. I'm Marisa Waddell, and I have Ailsa Chang here with me today. Ailsa is one of the hosts of NPR's All Things Considered, which you can hear on KCBX every weekday from 4:30 to 6:30. Welcome, Ailsa.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
And we really appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Oh, of course. Of course. It's a good time to chat,
It sure is. It sure is. Ailsa, you didn't start in journalism. You practiced law for 5 years before you quit that and took an unpaid internship at KQED at age 30.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you so much for doing some homework there. I was a very unhappy lawyer at the law firm. I mean, I loved law school. I loved clerking on the Ninth Circuit. And it was when I got to the law firm that I decided this is just not the profession for me, or this kind of work isn't the work for me. It didn't access the parts of me that I liked a lot about myself. Like, I have deep, deep curiosity about lots of different things, and I like the ability to follow that curiosity unbridled. I also love talking to all kinds of people, and I felt like I wasn't getting all kinds of people in a legal practice at a law firm. And for those who know me personally, I'm just, I'm kind of kooky. I'm a free spirit. I say things and, out loud. There's not a lot of distance between what my brain is thinking and what my mouth is saying, and it's not a great fit sometimes to be someone like that in law firm culture. So I just felt like a misfit, but I didn't have the guts to quit until 5 years into my legal practice. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, but I knew that I couldn't be on the constant treadmill of working as a lawyer 12 hours a day or more, and figure out what I was going to do with my life. So I quit. I'm sorry, you didn't even ask me, but I'm telling you the story of my life now, Marisa.
Well, what I want to know is what was it about public radio that made you want to start pursuing an entirely new career in public radio?
Oh my gosh. Well, I was rescued by an internship at KQED, which you mentioned. I just went to KQED at the time because I needed a landing spot while I was figuring out my life. And I had always been a casual listener of public radio. And I thought, gosh, these people on air, they sound down to earth. They sound intelligent. They sound engaged in the world. I just want to be around people like that while I figured my life out. So I signed up for this internship. But then I realized how fun it was to plan human conversations. So I was a booker as an intern, meaning I booked guests for the talk show hosts. It meant researching topics. It meant pre-interviewing guests. And I found out how incredibly liberating it was to think about different topics, multiple topics a day. When you're a litigator at a law firm, you're often stuck on cases for years. And it doesn't matter if that case bores you to death. You are stuck on that case. It is your job to represent the client. But in journalism, it is your duty to stick to a story so long as it is important and relevant and interesting to people. And if it ceases to be any of those things, you move on to the next story. And I found that so fundamentally liberating. And what I loved about radio specifically is that, especially, I grew up in the Bay Area, so being connected to a community-based journalism organization like KQED, like any NPR member station, was really cool because I could think about the topics that directly related to the local community, the Bay Area. But because of the connection to NPR, I could also be listening and engaging with topics that touch the country and the world. And having that multi-layered experience taking in journalism was just so... It basically inspired me to change careers. I didn't think I was going into journalism when I signed up for that first internship, but it only took me a few months before I decided to apply to journalism school, and the rest is history.
Yeah. You got a Kroc Fellowship at NPR, and then you worked at both KQED and WNYC, and then made your way back to NPR. So you have experience both at the local station level and the network level.
100%. I'm what they call inside the network. I'm a member station baby. I grew up with the member stations. I value it so much. I see how impactful reporting at the local level can be. I'm still, to this day, I kid you not, I'm being 100% honest when I say I am proudest of all the journalism that I have done in my entire life as a journalist. I am proudest of the stuff that I did at a member station. Like maybe the series that I, to this day, have not outdone, at least in my view, is this investigative series about the NYPD's stop and frisk policies and how they were conducting illegal marijuana arrests during stop and frisks. It was in 2011 that series aired, and it was at a time in New York where the stop and frisk conversation, it had begun, but it wasn't exploding the way it did like a year later. And my reporting was one of the things that helped that conversation gain momentum and become more of a robust debate in the city. And I'm still so proud of it. And I can see the power of taking a story that you think has legs, reporting it to the hilt, and then seeing impact almost immediately because it affects the local community that story is being aired to, being broadcast to. Within weeks of that series airing, the NYPD commissioner issued new guidance on how to conduct marijuana arrests, how to do searches during stop and frisks, basically reminding NYPD officers what the law was and how to abide by the law. And then it became a topic of debate in the New York State legislature about whether they should decriminalize low-level amounts of marijuana possession. So I just saw these immediate ripple effects from a local story that I did, and it was just so gratifying to see that, you know?
Yeah. Well, my one last question is, why do you personally think that it's important that public radio listeners support it with their dollars?
I think it is so important that our listeners remain engaged and continue to support us, especially now, because it is so hard to replicate what we have. This extensive network of hundreds of member stations that supply local reporting to communities that are directly impacted by those stories, and also bring, with the national programming that we have, both national and international news coverage. And I can't think of any other journalism organization that has that depth and expanse of reach simultaneously. And so if we want listeners to continue to be informed at the local, national, and international level, we need to keep this network alive and healthy. And right now, because the rescission package has been passed by Congress, there's a real question whether member stations specifically, especially in rural areas where there may be news deserts, whether those stations can survive. We're going to do our best to prop them up, to keep them going, to sustain them, but we're going to need the listeners' help to do that. So please stay engaged, stay listening. This kind of journalism matters.
Thank you, Ailsa. That's great.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome, Marisa.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. You can hear NPR's Ailsa Chang hosting All Things Considered weekdays on KCBX from 4:30 to 6:30.
This is Vincent Bernardi. I'm a local singer-songwriter, musician, and one of the best things I love about KCBX is they play local music and local artists from the Central Coast.
Hey there, I'm Dulcie Taylor. One of the best parts of living in San Luis Obispo County is our NPR station, KCBX. With their wonderful programming, they keep us in touch with each other and with the world. And I send a big thank you out to the DJs who play my music here. It's an honor to be heard on this station.
This is Jody Mulgrew. I cannot find a better sounding signal on the Central Coast than KCBX. It's where I go to hear and feel the music.
For 50 years, KCBX has been more than a radio station. It's been our station. Built by neighbors, carried by friends, and kept alive by the folks right here on the Central Coast. Every voice, every story, every laugh along the way, it all belongs to you. So let's hear from some of the people who've been a part of this wild, wonderful ride. Linnaea from Linnaea's Café.
Well, I'm Linnaea Phillips. I'm 91 years old, and I've been in love with all kinds of people and places, everywhere I can find them. And that's pretty wide when you think about a little bit of travel and a little bit of people and a little bit of children and a little bit of husbands, a little bit of husbands. And so there have been some very good times in my life. I think it opened to us, people who were behind the mic, who wanted to be behind the mic. It gave us a freedom to say we could be. And could be was a lot of newness. And we didn't know about the newness and whether anybody would be interested in that newness. And that newness was about ideas, places, time, and each other. And we didn't know very much about each other either. So we've always been trying to do that. I started a cafe, and because I probably needed advertisement, all businesses need to be advertised. And I was a very simple business person who knew nothing about business. I just knew I wanted to sell coffee, but I didn't even know how to do that. And so I remember having a little gathering with people, and these gatherings usually occurred because you could reach out to people and say, I'm going to be on KCBX. Do you know what that is? And so then I would get these few people that would come, and what do you want to talk about? And I'd say, I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so public radio became an idea. There was a small idea, of course, on the bigger basis, but not in our town. And our town was a little tiny town with a very limited point of view on lots of things, mostly because they hadn't been exposed. And so this was a way to be exposed. And here we are, exposing each other. It goes back to that openness and an opportunity to hear from each other without making any biased judgments, hopefully. I think that's where we're running into all kinds of questions right now in our political and social world, is who are we and what do we want to be and who's telling us. So I think that's the importance of who we are. And why we're doing this, what you're doing, is to keep on going with that idea. Because the cafe became a kind of center for oddities, people, places, and events, there was an endless kind of series of people wanting to be different, and they wanted to be accepted for their differences. So on one occasion, we had a guy come in and say, I want to bring the entertainment. And we had had lots of entertainment. So to have someone come to you and actually say, I have some entertainment and I want to bring it to you. Usually we arranged the entertainment, but this guy came and he walked through the door with 2 garbage cans. Big garbage cans, metal garbage cans. No lids. And so with the carrying in of the garbage cans and a few little rustles along the way that he banged into them, he began a series of theatrical movements and sounds that were a kind of music. And it struck people as, this is music. And it's out of a garbage can. And it's out of somebody who lives here. Why is he doing that? And why is somebody allowing him to do that? So there were several things that were got to be questioned. And more questions occurred for various subjects across many dimensions. So that's how KCBX got born, because they were willing to try somebody else's way of hearing or thinking or doing.
My name's Will Carlton, and I've been in this community for probably close to 50 years now. I grew up in the 60s, a time of turmoil, and I came to San Luis Obispo to go to school at Cal Poly, and I was not a great student, but I loved the town, and I stayed here the rest of my life. Became an artist, and there were a lot of times when I wasn't sure I was going to be able to fulfill all my art and inspirations. But I met people in this community that helped that along, and one of the big ones was Linnaea. He's always been supportive of so many things in this town, and it's why I stayed in this town. I remember Myron Graham, Linnaea, and I'm here now because seeing Linnaea again was a wonderful thing, and we talked about oral history, and it's important to leave an oral history being an artist and wanting to stay in this community, I donated to the art auctions that they had, that Myron Graham was a big part of. And it's where I met my wife, and it's because she wanted to learn how to blow glass. So I'm happy I'm here now because I wanted to go through with this idea of oral history. And that's, I've always been a big news lover. I've always looked at radio.
You can say that you start listening at 3 in the morning.
I do. Let's start with, yeah.
Morning edition, 3 a.m.
And then Chris has to hear about it, of course. And there's sure a lot to talk about these days. And KCBX will be here forever. We're concerned about the rural areas of the country that may not get coverage, and that has to change. And we can be a model for the rest of the country of having NPR continue on with the truth.
My name is Chris Anderson, and I started listening to KCBX in 1979 when I had grown up in this area and moved away and came back in 1979 and discovered this incredible radio station. And I hadn't had a television at that time, maybe, 7 or 8 years. Got rid of that awful thing. And so KCBX was the lifeline to the world out there listening to Morning Edition and All Things Considered and A Prairie Home Companion and all of the incredible volunteer DJs who were on the air. And I wouldn't call Linnaea a DJ, but she was a host. And I was a supporter of KCBX financially. And then at one point I thought, I should go volunteer. And so in 1984, I volunteered to be an office person because I knew how to do all of that. And the assistant general manager left after I had been volunteering for about 4 months, and I was offered her position. So I became the assistant general manager and was that for 13 years. And it was life-changing, I have to say. It was the most incredible, I can cry now, group of people I've ever worked with. And so along that line, I then became the co-host of the Minstrel Song Show on Saturdays. And with another, an offshoot amazing group of people, also on-air volunteers, we started the Live Oak Music Festival. And so Jim Miller and I were the co-chairs of the festival for the first 10 years. And again, that was another amazing part of my life. And to be able to give that to the community, every year, it never failed. I'd be standing in the back of after having been there for a week practically, getting everything set up down at Live Oak Camp, stand in the back of the audience, looking over the top of all of the people sitting there at whomever was playing on the stage, and just tears running down going, wow, we all made this happen.
My name is Christine Marchant, and I've been living in San Luis Obispo since 1980. I came from Europe, and I felt very isolated when I came here, and I think it was KCBX that saved me in a way, because I didn't know the programs that were accessible at the time, but when someone told me to try KCBX, and I did, I loved it, and of course became a lifetime member. So that was in 1980, and then I got involved with different programs, and I fancied myself as somebody who might be able to work in radio. And one thing I thought I'd love to record the lives of elderly people in San Luis Obispo, because I'm sure they've got a lot of things to tell, a lot of interesting stories. So I got myself a little recorder like that one, and the first person I recorded was, what's his name, the Chinese guy, opposite the Palm. He used to have the Louis store. He used to have the Louis store, and it was his grandfather or his great-grandfather that had the Louis store. And he and his wife, not the grandfather, the grandson, were still going in the store, running the store. And I thought that'd be great to have a story from him. So I went in and I asked him all these questions, and it was so fun to hear the answers. And I was so excited. And when I got home, I said to my husband, listen to this. But guess what? I forgot to press the recording button. So that was one of my first and last experiences at KCBX. My only news comes from KCBX. I don't get TV news. I don't really read newspapers. It all comes from KCBX and the programs that are on there, because I feel that they're going to inform me more wisely than others do. I've always loved radio since I was a kid, and I will continue to do so and to support the wonderful KCBX and all its people who work for it, all its volunteers.
Hi, I am Lisa Spiro, and my current occupation is I am becoming the president CEO of Monterey Colleges of Law, which has a San Luis Obispo campus here locally. And I'm on the board of directors for KCBX, but a very long time KCBX listener.
And this is Ken Spiro. I am a federal worker with NOAA, with National Weather Service, and I've been listening to KCBX since probably about 1982.
I would say KCBX brings me lots of joy, lots of the particular music shows I really love listening to. It exposes me to new music and also local music, which I love, but I also really like the news. I am a big fan of Fresh Air. I'm a big fan of Morning Edition, and I pretty much listen to KCBX all day, whether it's when I first wake up and I want to know the news, or I want some nice music on the weekend, or evening news as well.
I'm in agreement with my wife. So I get my news primarily from KCBX, and really appreciate the impartial news and the local angle as well.
Well, I think my personal connection is being on the board of directors. I was very excited when I was invited to join, and it's given me a little bit more inside information about how things work and getting to know the history and the amazing stories and people that have made it what it is today.
I'd say the last couple of years we've gone to Live Oak, and really appreciated bringing in the artists there and getting to meet the staff that are working on the radio station.
You know, it's a difficult time right now, but I'm confident that people understand the value that it provides, and the support will be there.
You're listening to Issues and Ideas here on KCBX. I'm Marisa Waddell, and my guests today are two people who live and breathe KCBX every day. They make decisions on how KCBX will spend its budget, and much of their job is to ensure that KCBX has the funds the station needs so we can keep serving our community. Frank Lanzone is the president and general manager of KCBX, and Chris McBride is the station's assistant general manager and development director. Hi, you two.
Hello.
Hello. I'm so glad you could come and chat with me a bit today as we're celebrating the station's 50th anniversary. We've been talking a lot about the history of KCBX in this hour, but I'd like to take some time to look forward into the coming years for the station, and a lot of that has to do with funding, especially in light of the recent rescission of federal funds. So I'm going to start with you, Frank. You said at a recent staff meeting that you're optimistic about the financial future of KCBX, and I'd like you to talk about why.
Well, first of all, I want to say I've loved listening to those previous segments today from some awesome people who have been involved with KCBX for so long. But the future is, I think, financially viable and positive because of, well, years of hearing from people and the way people have supported us for 50 years. But since this rescission started in the last 6 months or so, it has been building as people have come to the realization that that funding is going to go away. We've talked about it being a 12% loss in our annual revenue, but that's just the cash portion of it, which is about $240,000. There's another $200,000 in other support that CPB, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, has provided for all public TV and radio stations. We don't know exactly all that it encompasses. We don't know what our share individually is broken down, because the copyright, for instance, music copyright, we know the full amount, but we don't know what part of that is ours because of the closed meetings that they're not allowed to share because of the contracts that were signed. So we don't know that and where it's going. A lot of unknowns, but the support that's come in by people doubling their sustaining pledges, by people contributing to our endowment, contributing double their sustaining pledges. It's been pretty amazing, and that's primarily why it's our community has been stepping up in ways that we couldn't imagine until right now.
And Chris, even though listener support accounts for the largest percentage of the station's income, the loss of federal funding means we now have to raise $420,000 per year, and maybe even more in future years, to make up for that loss. So beyond our usual pledge drives and underwriter support from local businesses and the Live Oak Music Festival, what are some other ways that you'll be working to raise funds for KCBX?
Well, one thing is our pledge drives are something that we are very visible, and we are always year-round reaching out to our donors, but we will end up really kind of expanding that outreach. And I think one of the things we're focused on are bringing new members, new donors into our community, into our fold. We know that a lot of our listeners, a large percent of our listeners actually don't contribute to KCBX or support the station. I don't think that's necessarily, there's many reasons that might be happening, but I think if we can communicate out to people who listen, who don't give, the value of the station and what it means, hopefully help them understand or think about what it means to them as a listener, that's one way we're going to expand our outreach that we're really doing year-round through different ways, through email, through newsletters, and through direct mail. So we'll be expanding, I think, our outreach, looking to bring in new donors. And we'll also be having events and some other more community, more obvious community activities that will hopefully encourage people to understand who we are, if they don't know already who we are here on the Central Coast.
Will you talk more about how people can leave legacy gifts to KCBX?
Yes. So a few other ways that existing donors or new donors could contribute to the station is leaving a legacy to the station. And that might be several different ways, but two real long-term ways would be putting KCBX in your will. Bequests have been recently, we've received several large bequest donations that are really helping us feel optimistic also about where we are right now. And we also recently received an endowment. And so that's an endowment. We get to use what we earn off that endowment, and those funds sit there. And I think building our endowment is really a way for us to have a long-term stability. So calculating out what we need a $5 million endowment. We're not close to that yet, but that's definitely something that we're going to focus on because that will ensure that those funds are coming in year after year, and we don't have to be chasing those funds, right? And we can also increase what we're getting annually. Perhaps if we know we have our annual needs taken care of, we'll be able to also hopefully increase that annual fundraising to grow and expand the offerings that we have here.
Which is a perfect segue to my next question. And we've been talking a lot about the loss of federal funding on the air for the last few months. But what we haven't been talking about on the air so much, but we've been talking about it within the walls of KCBX, is how we want to grow. We want to continue, even though we're losing federal funding, we want to be able to continue to grow as a station and as a community service. So will you each talk about some of your hopes and dreams for the station and how you want to serve the Central Coast in new or expanded ways in the years to come?
Yeah. I think if I say everything I know, there may be nothing left for you, because we keep talking about this and amongst ourselves with our board of directors as well. But we want our newsroom to grow. Certainly, that's a top priority, because 3.5 to 4 people is really not enough people power to cover all of San Luis Obispo, part of Santa Barbara, part of Monterey counties as well. And they're doing a great job, but it's a 24/7 job if you've only got that many people working on it. So expanding the newsroom is important. We've been talking, and it's part of a long-range plan to turn our training room into a performance space where we can bring in live music and bring in a live audience and expand some of that. Being local music is part of KCBX since the very beginning, and we want to keep that up and even expand it and bring it into the station, and yet share it with our local people who can come in and watch it, and as we also hopefully broadcast it live. So that's a big thing that we want to really accomplish, and that's going to, of course, take more money in addition to the $420,000. But there's a lot of people in favor of that, so I'm fairly positive that we can pull that off and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and video would be a component of that. Public radio isn't really public radio anymore. It's public media, and stations all over the country are producing video and have YouTube channels, and you're able to go and see Tiny Desk Concert on video, or offerings from other music stations on video, and that's something that KCBX wants to do too, isn't it?
It is. I think both video, I think it's what offerings we can expand to make sure that we're serving our whole community and reaching out to all generations. And as we want to expand, really thinking about how we can really have the community participate, whether regardless of their age or generation, and seeing both KCBX something that is here for them to listen to but somehow participate in. Mm-hmm. So I envision perhaps some more community events, bringing in like NPR people that our community might want to hear from, bringing in perspectives that really hopefully open their world, right? We're here to, I think it is inspire, educate, and there's one more word there that I lost that is in our mission statement.
Inform.
Thank you. But I think thinking through what that would mean for the whole community, not just our current listeners, but who are our future listeners. So I see an expansion not only of what we're doing here at the station on site, but perhaps what we're doing out in the community, participating in what's happening in the community and having them participate in what we do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And entertain. I mean, that's also in our mission statement too. And I was just talking yesterday with one of our volunteers about maybe doing some salons, having a gathering space where people can come and share ideas with one another. There are other stations. There's one station that started doing policy in a pint, where you could drink beer and talk about policy in your region. So there are so many different possibilities for KCBX to expand what we do as a community service.
I think another one too, taking off on the salons, is we have such an array of music hosts that are local, and their knowledge is so expansive, and having them be out in the community, perhaps having some Q&A with Fred Friedman about a jazz album, bringing what he does here in the studio, perhaps, or bringing a host out into the community, what they're doing here in the studio, but out so they can have interaction with the public. Because it's very one-way street, right?
Yeah, you get behind the microphone.
You get behind the microphone, but people are listening. So how do we make it listening an activity? More participatory rather than I listen to KCBX. Perhaps it's more like KCBX. I participate at KCBX because I get to do these activities or meet these people or bring my viewpoints and exchange views with the people at the station and the people of our community. So that's what I see as facilitating.
Lots of exciting possibilities into the future. If somebody wants to make a difference for KCBX right now and help the station move forward towards some of these ideas in the next 50 years, what are some of the ways that they can help immediately? And what are some of the ways that they can help in the long run? Just briefly.
Well, of course, I'm going to say they can make a gift right now, a donation right now to support us. And a great way to support us throughout the years to become a sustaining supporter. That's a monthly gift. And so you're supporting every single month. You're sending your support to KCBX. A future way to support the station, again, is thinking about a legacy gift to the station. So that might be something through your retirement account. And those are very beneficial depending on where you are in your life span and what you have going on in terms of your retirement accounts. And then, of course, supporting our endowment, which is really a long-term way that we will become secure financially and be able to, again, grow, because we won't have to necessarily worry year after year about raising the money to operate. If our endowment's large enough, we won't need to do that. We won't need to have to focus on operating. We'll be able to focus on expansion and continuing that growth.
And all of those options are available at kcbxlegacy.org anytime, or give one of us a call. We're always happy to talk to everyone who calls us.
Yep, and you can also donate your car if you have a car you don't want anymore.
Or actually, vehicle.
A vehicle, it can be a motorcycle or
a
boat.
Tractor.
Or a tractor, moped, if it has an engine. I know someone donated an e-bike even. So if it has some sort of propulsion, I guess, perhaps. I don't know. I heard someone donated a canoe to another radio station. So it doesn't hurt to find out if something that you'd like to donate is considered a vehicle. It's a broad definition.
You just go to kcbx.org and there's a support tab, and you can find all the various ways that you can support KCBX. I know that both of you are happy to talk with listeners and supporters. If someone wants to contact you directly, what's the best way to do that?
Frank at kcbx.org, 805-549-8855 for either of us.
Yeah, or Chris, C-H-R-I-S, Chris at kcbx.org, or give us a call, 800-549-8855.
Pledge now. Wait.
That number might sound familiar.
My guests have been Frank Lanzone, the president and general manager of KCBX, and Chris McBride, the station's assistant general manager and development director. Thank you both for taking some time to chat with me about KCBX moving forward into the next 50 years.
Thanks, Marisa.
Thank you.
For Issues and Ideas, I'm Marisa Waddell.
Hello, I'm Lana Cochran.
And I'm Tom. We are longtime KCBX supporters.
I can't imagine a day without it. We listen from morning to night.
We rely on KCBX information, news, personality, and great music programs. It's like a good friend, always there for us.
Hi, this is Colin Dean from Brass Mash, and I'm so thankful for KCBX, first of all, for playing amazing music. It's so fun to be driving around in the morning listening to the sounds of the Morning Cup with Neil Losi. And also, for us musicians, we're driving home late at night and listening to all the great programming that happens then. And it's also great to, hear my own music. That's a rarity this time and age to have a local music station be able to support local artists in this way. So thanks, KCBX.
Hi, my name's Kate Armstrong. I'm a local singer-songwriter. I adore how much grassroots community building KCBX does through the volunteers, through the music, through the events, and just support everything that they do. Hope you enjoy listening.
I love independent public and community radio and the people who are passionate about it. I start my day with Morning Edition and stream on-demand programs like Across the Tracks, The Road Home, and Broken Spoke when convenient. I'm Larry, recently moved from Montana to Cayucas. I support KCBX, and you should too.
I said community is my immunity. Community is my immunity. They can't take that away, no. Take it away from me. 50 years of broadcasting and bringing the world together.
You've been listening to Issues and Ideas on KCBX Public Radio for the Central Coast. Our theme music comes from Gary Eister, and a big thank you to all of our guests and contributors. I'm David Maccabee. Join me every Monday from 1 to 2 for more stories, more voices, and more of what makes our community tick.